Hello and welcome. We are so glad you can join us for Connections 2021. Wherever you are in the world, we're thrilled you can be a part of this unique global experience connecting our progressive Jewish family. My name is Andrew Keene. I live in Washington, D.C., and I'm a member of the management committee of the World Union for Progressive Judaism. This is my third Connections conference, and I had the privilege to co-chair the 2017 conference in Jerusalem. Even though we can't be together in person, Connections 2021 provides a wonderful opportunity to learn, to celebrate, reflect, and of course, connect, all of which we can take back into the physical realm in due time. I hope you enjoy all the conference has to offer. The session now should be both interesting and eye-opening. Please enjoy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dani Rotstein, and I will be moderating today's panel on virtual travel. So today we'll be talking about how in-person travel programs have now adapted to the times that we're living in. So on this panel, we'll have Ariel Sokoloff with the JDC, Dani Rotstein with Jewish-Mallorca, and Shari Robins, who is an Israeli tour guide. They each have their own experience and expertise in the matter, and I'm really excited to start off. So let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Let's just start off with some introductions. Tell me your name, your title, your organization, if that's relevant, and where in the world are you? Ariel, let's start with you.
Sure. Hi, I'm Ariel Sokoloff. I work for JDC Entwine. I'm the Deputy Director of Engagement. I can share a bit about Entwine and JDC a little bit later, but I'm based in New York and really excited to be on this panel today.
And Dani.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dani Rotstein. I am the CEO and founder of an educational and cultural tourism company called Jewish-Mallorca. I am based in Mallorca Island, Spain, off the coast of Valencia and Barcelona, in between Spain and Italy. And I'm originally from New Jersey in the United States.
Awesome. And Shari.
My name is Shari Robins. I'm an Israeli tour guide. I live in Jerusalem, but originally from Ohio. I've been in Jerusalem now for 35 years. I'm an independent tour guide, meaning that half my work is private directly with clients, and the other half is through tour agencies taking people around the country.
Wonderful.
Wonderful opportunity to be part of this thing.
Well, I'm delighted to have everyone here, and hopefully next year in Jerusalem, or, you know.
Amen.
Ariel, I'm going to start off with you again. So first question that I'm posing is, tell us about your programs pre-COVID and what they look like now, sort of within the digital space. So kind of the before and after.
Sure. So for a little bit of background, Entwine is the young adult platform of JDC, or the Joint Distribution Committee. JDC is an 106-year-old organization that works in about 70 countries in the world, mostly around the world, mostly focusing on Jewish community building and sustainability, humanitarian aid, and disaster response. And Entwine, which is the department I work for, our mission is to connect young professionals in their 20s and 30s to global Jewish causes through the lens of JDC. So before COVID, we would run about 25 insider trips a year, bringing somewhere around 15 to 20 people to different countries in which JDC works for a week, really getting to know the community, its history, getting to meet the people, engaging in the culture. And we had about 500 people travel with us a year. We also run an in-person fellowship called the Jewish Service Corps. And in any given year, we would send about 12 to 15 people to live in a community in which JDC works for a year, really lending their expertise to that space. And then on the local side, we run in-person events in key cities across the US, like New York, DC, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. And the purpose of these events is to provide opportunities for participants of these overseas programs to bring the stories and the experience that they had abroad to their local community. And we really try to inspire this value of aliyah, or taking action. So a lot of in-person events and travel happening. And this all had to pivot in the COVID world. But what what was really important to us from the very beginning is that our mission didn't change. Throughout this entire year, we have always been working towards inspiring young people to see global Jewish responsibility as core to their identity. We just had to shift that from getting to be on the ground in Morocco or Argentina or India to being on your Zoom screen. So throughout this year, I'll just focus on a couple of programs more specific to travel. We started a program called Insider Connections, which is a volunteer program that's connected about 150 volunteers to teens and elderly in the former Soviet Union, to Hebrew and English speaking Arab Israelis in Israel, and to elementary school students in the Kalwa slum in Mumbai. And for 30 minutes or an hour a week, there's this really beautiful mutual exchange happening between our volunteers and their matches on the ground. And even though it's not travel, it's really bringing to light what life is like for people around the world, and really focusing on that mutual exchange. So that's been just a beautiful program to see come to life. And then the other program is a virtual insider trip. We've run about 6 trips so far. I'm planning to do more in the fall once it's not beautiful outside and people don't want to be on Zoom. And this is a week of getting to learn about the community and a country with a cohort of peers. And I can talk a bit more about what that looks like later, but it's really trying to bring to life what participants would experience on the ground, but in this virtual space. So it's been a crazy year when you can't travel, as I'm sure everyone on the panel can resonate with, but it's provided a lot of opportunity for us to be creative and be innovative.
Definitely. Thank you. And Dani, I'm going to pose the same question to you, the programs pre-COVID, as well as what they look like now. Or
I'm sure.
Or,
No,
or if you...
I have a little person here who can answer this as well. Hold on one second. Sorry about that.
No worries. I think that's all part of it right now, right?
It is. This is
Absolutely.
Literally working at home. Actually, let's go to Shari and I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah. I'll pick up, I guess, where Ariel left off, in that bringing people to a place, that is what has changed. As an Israeli tour guide, that meant that people were coming to Israel, Jews all over the world. We just finished our Passover Seder with next year in Jerusalem. Last year, who would have imagined, 2 years ago, certainly who would have imagined, and who knows what's going to be next year as well. So as I stated before, half my work is as a private tour guide, meaning that I would correspond directly with the client, building the itinerary that suited their needs, their interests, whether it was a family or a couple or whatever. And the other half is working through different agents, which means that I would work with synagogues and federations. And one of the groups, my last group actually was Women of Reform Judaism, that I've had the privilege of working with here in Israel on 5 different tours over the years. So whether it's private or it comes through an agent, what's in common is you land and you start touring. So all of that came to a halt. Literally a week after WRJ went back to the United States, the cancellations began to pour in. What I had to do is, and the word that you use too, Ariel, is to pivot, because that's the word that we're all using right now. How do you switch gears? Well, you can't take people out in the field and show them sites, and virtual tourism was something in its infancy. So it's really, in a way, been a pioneering experience of, if people can't come to Israel, how can I and other colleagues bring Israel through the screen when you can't smell and taste and touch? And that end of the day of ending up in the hotel and then wanting to go out for dinner or shopping, how do you try to recreate that kind of experience? So when I received a request by Women of Reform Judaism to run a virtual tour, I said, sure, okay. And then looked at the screen and said, well, how do you do that? And it's been a huge learning curve for me, creatively then bringing together ideas of still going out into the field when we weren't in lockdown and having somebody film me, edit those movies down, include them in tours, but to creatively create tours that were all zoomed out. So how do you keep engagement on the screen within 1 hour? It's been a fascinating experience. I've built over 20 virtual tours at this point. And one thing that I've learned in the experience is that there definitely are ways to keep people connected to Israel, even through touring, but the experience is different until things change. And even when they do change, I think a lot of this is still going to be around.
Definitely. And, I think that's something we'll definitely touch upon soon, what that looks like for the future and such. Now, just pivoting our word, Dani, bringing it back to you, tell us again about your programs pre-COVID and like what it looks like now within the digital space. And yeah.
Yeah, sure. No problem, Dani. Basically, I pivoted my own career from being a TV commercial producer. So I have this audiovisual background, and then opened up my educational tourism company really at the end of 2018. And so 2019 was our first summer, and we were so blessed. We actually started our opening with a WPJ cruise that went from all to these different Spanish cities and stopped in Mallorca, which has a big port. And so we had about 80 participants. We took 2 different groups walking through the Jewish quarter of Palma de Mallorca, and very similar to Shari, we would do large groups or small groups, private families or couples. And yeah, once again, it was this idea of a 2-hour tour or a half-day tour or a full-day tour, or even a multi-day tour, but in person. And I have to say, the irony of it all, my friends here in Mallorca make fun of me. They think like I'm the guy who's like standing at the port or at the airport going, "Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish?" Holding a sign. "Oh, you're here for Sun and Fun? Let me tell you about this incredible Jewish history that you probably had no idea about." And so I had to wait for people to arrive to the island in order to share this exciting history that I want to impart. And COVID hit. And I was very, very lucky that we have been filming a documentary about the history of the Jews of Mallorca. So I had all this footage of me giving a tour. Like I had, it was already filmed. And so I was very lucky to hire an editor. We chopped it up into different episodes, and I hung it up online. And I'm like, all right, people are going to download this 1.5-hour long tour, and it's going to be great, and it's going to save my family and all of this stuff. Total failure. How are you going to compete with Netflix, for $5 a month? It didn't make sense, this recording. And so then we pivoted again. The pivot word is just constantly trying things out and hope you get lucky. And eventually we did. It was, doing a conference like this, in front of my screen. And then I would share videos in between of me on the streets to, have people get that feeling of what it would be like to walking through. And then the next real breakthrough was actually taking my camera, going onto Zoom, using a stabilizer camera, and walking through the streets and actually giving people a tour. And that suddenly was an aha moment, because eventually I could have, up to 100 people, going through the streets with me, where I could never do that in the real world. I couldn't walk around with 100 people through these tiny, narrow alleyways. No way. So weirdly enough, you try and look for the silver lining in all of this, I'm actually able to get this kind of secret, hidden Jewish history of this specific island out to more people digitally than I was then waiting for them to come to the island and actually see it. So in a way, the whole circumstance is how it works. This is a turning point for us because more people are finding out about this exciting history. And now it's just a fun game of how to get the word out and marketing and publicity and all that other boring stuff, which I'm sure the other panelists can appreciate is a whole other bag of tricks. But yeah, that's a little bit of the pre and post.
Amazing. And Dani, I'm actually going to bring it back to you just to switch up our panel order a bit. But, you kind of touched upon it, and I'd love to dive deeper with all of you. What does this idea of digital engagement looks like? Whether you're talking about like, what are these new techniques that you're pioneering, and what are these experiences out in the field that you're talking about? Like, what does it mean to be somewhere digitally?
Sure. So, we started with the standard PowerPoint presentation with images and maps and whatnot. And I always like to lean into the edge and to go, how far can we go? And so we've really had fun exploring. We, as I said earlier, now do this thing where we are actually on the streets. We do it during the daytime, so it has to be quite early for those in North America. And when I go from one stop to the other stop, instead of them walking through the streets, a little boring because I'm not explaining anything, I show a video of me in another part of the city, which I couldn't be able to access because of sheer distance. So they're kind of constantly engaged. And I really use the chat feature. I ask people, what holiday do you think was the most favorite holiday of the crypto Jews of Mallorca in the 1600s? And everyone's putting in the chat their guesses and their answers. So, I really push the envelope of engagement and interaction. I think that's super important today because it's not about watching something. It's about, participating in something, experience something. We've also had fun with this idea called the box, where we only tried this a few times because it's quite expensive to organize, but we would send a box and say, don't open it. But when you're about to go on the tour with Jewish Mallorca, that's when you open this box. And so we did that. And inside there was, a bottle of wine from Mallorca, some salt from Mallorca, olive oil. So we, on the tour they also get to bite, a bread from Mallorca or something like that. So we really play with the senses. The other thing we've had fun with is 360-degree video. So I've done that where on YouTube, if you take your phone, there's a video of me on the phone saying, if you turn around and look up, you'll see a sign that's really important. And you can move your phone and look up and see, or if you have virtual reality goggles, you can do the same. We haven't really pushed hard on that because I think that's probably a little bit it's in the future. It's not here yet. And our target audience are going to be people mainly in their elderly years and sitting at home. So perhaps not with that technology yet. And then the last thing I'll share with you is that we've expanded, not just doing Jewish Mallorca, but we do this thing called the Hot Air Zoom Balloon, where we travel to different Jewish communities around the world now, finding out about their stories and telling us and giving us tours of, different Jewish quarters and whatnot. And it's not so much about this history lesson or even seeing a new place that they've never seen before. Just connecting. People want to connect with another Jewish person in another far off land and hear their story and hear their family history and hear their community. And it's really been helping a lot of people. We've gotten wonderful, beautiful emails of people sharing how much these connections have meant to them. So every Thursday we're committed. 52 weeks of this year, 2021, we're going to be visiting a different city or different country. It's quite exciting.
Fabulous. And I love that you said connections because we love when we say the name of the event in the naturally in panels. So fantastic. Ariel, I'm going to throw it to you. Same question, digital engagement and what that looks like, pioneering techniques, etc.
Sure. So a lot of similarities with what Dani shared, actually, just having people on the ground, filming their community and kind of doing a walking tour. The welcome packages have been an amazing way to bring those senses and the sensory experience into someone's home and they can't be on the ground. Something that's been really interesting for us working in so many different countries around the world is just how we adapt to the lockdown rules in the country that we're visiting. So in India, for example, I facilitated a 5-day virtual experience to learn about the Mumbai Jewish community. And at the time, there was a very strict lockdown. So we couldn't have our staff go out onto the streets and film. So we really tried to bring it to life through videos that were already existed and through pictures, but it was really about that connection that Dani was talking about and getting young Indian professionals on Zoom to have a conversation with them to bring India to life. But then in other countries, we have incredible JDC staff around the world. So in Argentina, our staff person there was really able to get out on the streets and film this experience. In addition to filming, we've played with other platforms like Padlet and Mentimeter, really cool websites that are about learning and community building, and it provides a space for people off screen to chat with each other. You can build really cool maps, you can do polls, and we've just been playing this year with different modes of interaction to see what would resonate with people. And there were some programs, that didn't work. And, we got feedback that, stop using this platform. It's been at every event that you've done. Let's try something else. So we did, and we actually have a digital task force team. We meet once a month and we just play with different resources out there. Some of them really, detailed and you have to build something, and some of them as simple as Zoom breakout groups, and just providing, if you have 30 people on the screen, giving them an opportunity to chat in smaller groups and really get to know each other. So it's been really fascinating going from this in-person space to the digital space and tapping into all of these resources out there. And we plan to continue doing this because we've learned so much about how to utilize these resources in a purely digital space, but now we can use them to help people connect to a country before they travel there, or to build community with their group before they go to, whatever insider trip they're on. So we're excited to see how it continues to evolve.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like I'm hearing so many similarities between how we've all adapted and so on. Shari, I would love for you to share what you're doing.
To chime in, and that really a lot of things are very similar. The option to receive Israeli dates in the mail, or Silan, the date honey, and taste that wine, people who want to drink wine or don't want to have wine. Lots of things that you can buy and ship from Israel and receive in the United States. I think one difference, Ariel, was certainly what you're doing is sort of more worldwide, and my focus is Israel, but my next tour actually is looking at immigrants coming from many different countries to Israel, and that each tour will focus on a different immigrant society. So sort of coming from Yemen or Ethiopia, or other countries, of course, it's going to be an 8-part series. And then what is their impact here in terms of the culinary scene, the cultural scene? So shaking it up and using different kinds of formats where, yes, we use the chat. We even did do a Mentimeter as well, where sort of watching that cloud grow of what are the associative terms that people have to the word aliyah. Or in one episode, we're going to be having everybody actively filling in a map around the world. Where is your heritage from? To sort of show how we're all spread out over the world. The idea of also bringing the senses into it, and one of the 5-part tour that I created called the 5 Senses, or Israel Through the 5 Senses, it was not only about taste and the sounds, but it was, when it came to touch, about touching with your hands and your feet, that connectivity of sort of owning what it is to be in a digital society, and asking people to just very mindfully and consciously touch their keypad or their mouse or their phone. What is it their hands are touching, to use the digital age in order to allow us to stay connected? I even asked on the screen, how many of you are actually wearing shoes right now? How many of you have not even worn shoes for how many months right now? And feel your feet on the ground, and then switch it to a film clip of me walking outside somewhere in the field. And that kind of segues a little bit into, this allows options to be taking people to places that, as you said, Dani, you can't fit 100 people into an alleyway. Not everybody has the physical abilities to go hiking in Israel. And so I've been hiking the Golan Trail, filming myself along the way. And then people get a sense of, what is that like to actually hike in Israel? The opportunities are really endless here, but I am hearing also a lot of common denominators as we're all kind of pioneering and trying to shake it up and not use those same platforms again and again.
Thank you all for sharing these specific details of how you created sensory experiences and conversations and so on. I think, my next question I'd like to ask is, like, how are you really working? We're doing this all digitally. So obviously, how is everyone working to build robust communities between whether it be with yourself, whether it be with participants, whether it be within the participant community, excuse me, how are you building community within the experiences that you're leading? And Shari, I'm going to throw it back to you to start off.
Okay, it's an interesting question because community is what we all so desperately need right now, since we can't all be in the same room. My experience is that there's so much buzz around the tours that already advertising the next tour, people are coming back. So there's sort of like a returning kind of community culture that is being created. I will share though, one very surprising community that was created was because of this guy. Now, his name is Artsy, and he's an ibex. And I was taking him out into the field with me and placing him at various places whenever I was filming. And by day 3 of what was a 4-day tour, people started asking, hey, I want an Artsy. How do I get an Artsy? So I contacted the National Parks Authority and the Israeli Postal Service, and people bought Artsies. I shipped out 30 Artsies. I'm now in the process, people have been sending me their photos with their Artsies so that the next tour is going to have a gallery of Artsies from all over the United States. And this was a huge surprise to me, but clearly this was a community where people started sending pictures of Artsies sitting at their Passover Seder table. Because people are so much looking for connection and community that I never would have imagined that a cute little ibex stuffed animal would have been a vehicle to kind of create that. It's just one example.
I love that. I want an Artsy. Okay. And Ariel, back to you. How are we building community?
I'm obsessed with Artsy. I think that's amazing. It's so creative. We'll start. I'll order one too. So community building is inherent in really everything that we do at Entwine. And going back to the pivot of March 2020 last year, we really wanted to create programming that was in response to what our community was looking for. We have a community of people who have traveled with Entwine, who are connected to JDC. So part of community building came from us reaching out to people and just saying, hey, the world is crazy. How are you doing? Like, can we chat? And we've had, hundreds of coffee dates with people who are part of our community or looking to join the Entwine community. And part of that community building really comes from building programs that people want to see. And then during the programs themselves, I mean, from A to Z, it's community building is inherent in that programming. All of our trips, the virtual volunteering programs that we run, there's opening conversations where the groups set intentions together. We do have Dala together. I mentioned the breakout groups before and having prompts for people to not only learn about the country they're visiting, but to learn about each other. And it's been really fascinating to see how people sign up for some of our programs because they're looking for that community building. It's not only to experience the country that the trip is going to. Even, we have a program called Entwine Nash, which is, a cooking segment focused on a different culture, a different country. And in those spaces, it's about people getting to meet others. At the same time, something really interesting I've noticed this year is sometimes people want to join just for the content and not actually to build community. They want to have cameras off, just learn about something happening in the world. So we've been really intentional about the different program offerings so that we can meet people where they are and have enough variety so that if they want to meet others and get vulnerable and make new friends in this virtual space, they can, or they can just learn about the Jewish community of Dubai, have their camera off, do some work on the side, but still learn at the same time. And we think that's a really important element of being there for our people and for our community. Of just meeting them where they're at. And now I want to incorporate artsy into all of that.
See some collaborations going on. Amazing. And Dani, throwing it to you.
Sure, I'm loving the artsy idea as well, and the wheels are spinning already. I'm gonna name him. I gotta find like a Spanish version and call him Artsonio Banderas or something like that. We'll have to. I'll make sure to give the national parks the copyright on that. No, in very quickly to say that community is the top priority for us. It's connections once again, but it also has to be about building community, especially in this time frame. And we've been so blessed to build multiple communities. So very often a shul or a synagogue will come to us already with their community, but we'll open it up if they allow that, so other people can come and meet this cool community that already exists. And it's so lovely to see, hi, they know each other, and I can't wait to go to Mallorca together. Like it's so evident how much people want, need it, and are receiving something from it. The other thing that's very cool I wanted to point out is that we've kind of built a community of virtual tour guides. Because at Hanukkah last year, we did like an 8-day program. Every night of Hanukkah, we went to a different place. And I reached out and said, hey, I've seen you on Facebook, I've seen you on Instagram. You're trying your best just like we are to do virtual tours. How about we team up and do a program together? And people were like, yeah, of course. And that's beautiful to see, in times of need. It's not about like, who can get this, it's not about competition. It has to be about collaboration. And that's the only way we're going to move forward. Because as all the panelists have said here, including yourself, Dani, this is a complete new frontier. This is total the Wild West, everyone is a pioneer here. And so I think we have to help each other out. And the last thing I'll say is that, in addition to doing virtual tourism, we're also building community here in Mallorca. A very small Jewish community has been founded. And so we did something called Zoom just before the entrance of Shabbat. We called it Shazoom. And every Friday from March to August, we did Shazoom. It was welcoming Shabbat in Mallorca time, but open to the world. So we had people from Taiwan and from US and from Argentina, everyone coming on. We did music, because that's the language everyone can speak. And then we did breakout groups of Spanish, English, and Catalan, which is another language that they speak here in Mallorca. They speak Mallorquin, but it's the dialect of Catalan. And we had rabbis and cantors and educators also come, their own volition, and to contribute in their native tongue and create discussion. And it was a really beautiful thing. Like really, you felt after weeks and months of doing this that we had created a community, and people felt a part of this Mallorcan community that many of them had never even been to before. But it was a beautiful space that was able to have opened up. So I think it's totally possible to create and build community through a digital platform, and I think it's necessary.
Wonderful. I'm so excited and invigorated by all of your responses, and thank you. And now I'm going to ask the key award-winning question of, do you think it's here to stay? And like, we've been doing this for a year, going into over a year now. Like, what does it look like in a few years from now, in a few months from now, like the way that you've pivoted, and, what's here to stay, what's not, what does it look like moving forward? And Ariel, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. It's such a great question. And I think it goes back to this idea of, even though there was such a big shift in our industry, it provided so much opportunity as well. And we want to capitalize on that, and capitalize on all of the hard work that was done this year, across Jewish organizations I've seen all over the world, have really just been so creative in this space. And I think there's so much that can be taken forward with us. Thinking about community again, we want to continue our volunteer programs and continue to allow spaces for people to connect and build community across the world on their computers. You don't just have to be on the ground in order to experience that. And I think in terms of these digital platforms I mentioned before, we want to incorporate what we've learned this year into connecting people to a community before they go on the trip. And after they come home from a trip, how can they stay connected to the people that they've met? How can they engage with content? What news articles can we be providing? Things like that. And kind of thinking about it in this like blended learning space, we're calling it, and recognizing the fact that we can build community digitally, and set intentions before people even go on these experiences, meet each other in a deeper way than we had been able to before we had all of our learnings from this year, and then have a deep experience on the ground as we've had in the past. So I think, you know, there's a ton of opportunity, and hopefully things will open up sooner than later, but we're already thinking about how we can bring this forward, and you know, capitalize, as I said, on everything that we've learned this year.
Wonderful. And Dani, can I hear how you think this will play out, this new model?
I've been wrong on many things in my life before, but I've never been so certain that this is not only here to stay, this is going to continue to grow and develop and become an industry, to be honest. And I mentioned it earlier, you know, I'm already thinking about 360 tours where you put on virtual reality glasses and you feel like you're walking, you know, through the Negev desert, and exactly what Shari was saying, you're on the Golan Trail and you feel like you're there. I mean, there are people with mobility issues, people who are in wheelchairs, people who are not too old, but who are old and in their state of their life that they don't want to travel, that's something that they've made that decision, but they miss traveling or they want to feel like they're traveling. I mean, this is so obvious to me that we have hit a watershed moment in our history, and the game of the rules have changed. You know, who knows what travel is going to look like in 6 months and 12 months and 5 years from now. I don't think we're going to go back to the mass tourism that was there before. And I think that this is, you know how I know it's here to stay? Because Amazon is in the game. Once Amazon has jumped in, then I'm afraid, you know, they trump it all. And I've been blessed. We'll see how it's going. It's been an interesting experience. I am doing some consulting with them, and they are doing this. It's different. They don't build community. They're doing these private tours. So you connect through an app that they have. At one point, they did want you to go through mom and pop stores that are local to the places and be able to buy things and then send it to Amazon. So obviously they have their own agenda, but there is an interest in Amazon virtual experiences where you connect with people from Berlin and from Barcelona, Madrid, and all over, and Mallorca's on the map now. And it's one-on-one, you know, connections of someone in Seattle, someone in Mallorca, walking around for 30 minutes, you know, telling them street art, telling them the Jewish Quarter, or whatever you think it is. So yeah, I think it's definitely here to stay. And I think, hold on everyone, because this is going to be a wild ride if you're down and willing and excited to come along for the journey.
It most definitely is a journey. And Shari, how do you think this is here to stay, or if and well,
as they say in those audition TV shows or something, that's 3 big yeses, you know, because I think we all agree that this is definitely here to stay. And Dani, you just definitely hit on something that we in the tourist industry didn't actually perhaps take the time to focus on those with different abilities, whether it be physical abilities or financial abilities. But this is one thing that we've learned this past year is now touring is available, can be available to everybody. I think one thing that's maybe different than Mallorca or the work that JDC does is that as an Israeli tour guide, Israel is the home for the Jewish people. And there's a special place, I think, in still wanting to get your feet here in the land of Israel. But once even our skies open up and tourism does come back, when people are comfortable feeling that they want to be in a tin can that's going to bring them in an airplane coming here, I think there's another aspect of virtual touring or our experiences of this past year that will not leave us. And that will be like the pre and the post tour experience, especially when we want to talk about building community. Another thing that we've also learned is once you're on the ground and you've got that 10-day tour, 7-day tour, or whatever, you can't cram in so much. So with the virtual tour, be it post or pre-trip, you can go to off the beaten track tours. That's what I call my tours, is I try to take people where it's not what you're necessarily going to see when you're able to be here. It's the places that you never get to go to, either because of the logistical timing or physical abilities, or, there's only 24 hours in a day. So there's a lot that we've learned that, without a doubt, this is here to stay. How we use it to continue to build community and Jewish connection. Well, the pioneers that built this country were the pioneers of a different generation, and it's the digital age. And we're all doing the best we can and learning from each other. So this has been an incredible opportunity, certainly, to hear other voices.
I love the pioneering, and it really just all connects back to Judaism and pioneering and so on. So yeah. I just got chills a bit now that you've all shared your beautiful expertise. Where can people find you all, connect with your programs? What you're doing is amazing. You're all experts in this field within the last year, and let's make sure everyone can find you. Shari, back to you.
At this point, still using email, which is almost becoming an outdated format. But to connect up with me, and then we'll build it from there. That's where I would start from. Wow, and you've got actually, I will, you got it behind you. Okay, this is my business card, which actually is a whole story that goes with the logo. My email, it is 3 words strung together. Tiyul means to travel. So Tiyul with Shari, that's my name, at yahoo.com. And the logo is the 2 spies who are bringing the grapes back, saying, hey, this is a great place to be.
Awesome. Dani, as you've got it up.
Well, yeah.
I will, I'll do my virtual tour diligence here and get out of the way so you can see my business card. Oh, no. No, the C doesn't work all the time. If I go really small. Hi, everyone. I'm tiny. So Jewish Mallorca, we spell Mallorca with a J. That's it's spelled with double L's in Spanish and in Catalan, but in English and in German and in other languages, it's with a J. So jewishmallorca.com. And if you go there, you should see the contact page. And we have our classic Jewish Mallorca tours with me. We have our hot air Zoom balloons every Thursday where we go visit other Jewish communities. And the other thing we didn't really get to talk about was how to bring Judaism in. We're doing these free tours once a month around the Jewish holidays. So we did Hanukkah. We did in January Holocaust Remembrance Day on January 27th. We did this incredible series for Purim where we interviewed and spoke with 4 modern day Queen Esthers and their crypto-Jewish stories. And we traveled from Cuba to Calabria, Italy, to Braganza, north of Portugal, to Barcelona, learning about all these different resurrecting, re-emerging communities after it had been taken away from them in the Inquisition. So we invite you all to come be a part and share. I look forward to jumping on Shari's tours and as well as Ariel and JDC's. Thank you once again for having me, and it's been such an illuminating experience. Thanks again.
Excellent. And Ariel, where can we find you?
Sure. I don't think I've seen my business card since last March, but I'll just say that you can find everything about Entwine, all of our programs at jdcentwine.org. My email address is on there as well. We love to partner with different community organizations on our trips, a global Shabbat dinner, webinars. So please feel free to reach out, and we would love to figure out how we can partner together.
This was wonderful. You're all magnificent. I'm so jazzed right now. So thank you so much.
Fun.
Thank you.